Have you ever felt like God abandoned you? I'm not talking about a bad day. I'm talking about that hollow ache, that slow, suffocating silence where you pray and hear nothing. You read the Bible, but the words feel dry. You go to church, but you leave emptier than you came. You try to worship, but your heart feels like stone. And in the stillness, you wonder, did I do something wrong? Why does everyone else seem so close to God and I feel forgotten? No one sees that you cry before bed. No one hears the questions that echo in your mind. No one knows that you secretly wonder if this is all just a lie. But I see you, because I've been there. And more importantly, God sees you. And what if I told you this silence, this wilderness, this breaking isn't punishment, it's preparation. We often think God's silence is his absence, but biblically, some of the most profound seasons of silence were sacred. Moses fled to the desert for 40 years, not because God rejected him, but because he was preparing him. David hid in caves for years, anointed as king, yet hunted like a criminal. Jesus, God in flesh, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness for 40 days. Why? Because wilderness seasons strip away everything that isn't eternal. Our pride, our distractions, our need for control. In Deuteronomy 8:2, God says, "Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart." You see, God doesn't test you to learn about you. He already knows. He tests you so that you learn who you are without him and who he is when you have nothing else. Let's talk honestly. Some of you are praying for God to use you, to give you a platform, a calling, a purpose, but you resist the breaking. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. God can't use what he hasn't broken. Why? Because if he puts power in unbroken hands, that power will destroy you. You'll take the credit. You'll make it about you. You'll mistake gifts for intimacy. A.W. Tozer once wrote, "It is doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply." God doesn't hurt you to harm you. He breaks what's false in you so that what's eternal can finally live. Pride has to die. Control has to die. Self-reliance has to die. The altar isn't a place of comfort, it's a place of sacrifice. Have you ever held a baby learning to walk? At first you hold their hands, you cheer them on, but eventually you have to let go. Not because you've abandoned them, but because if they never fall, they'll never learn how to stand. God does the same. He pulls back, not to punish you, but to outgrow you. C.S. Lewis said, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains." That ache in your spirit, it's a holy invitation. God isn't gone. He's closer than ever, watching, guiding, strengthening, but he's teaching you to walk by faith, not by feeling. Some of you are weary. You've been praying for years, for healing, for breakthrough, for a spouse, for freedom from addiction, and you've heard nothing. Let me remind you, silence is not denial. Lazarus was dead for 4 days. His sister said, "Lord, if you had been here." But Jesus wasn't late. He was setting the stage for something greater. When God seems slow, he's often setting up a miracle that's bigger than you can imagine. Habakkuk 2:3 says, "Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." God's timing is not just punctual, it's perfect. Now here's the piercing question. What are you clinging to that God is asking you to release? What identity? What relationship? What secret habit? What fear of surrender? Sometimes we think God is distant when in reality, we are the ones holding him at arm's length. We want the peace of God without the lordship of Christ. But true transformation begins when we say, God, break everything in me that doesn't look like you. Psalm 51:17 says, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O God, you will not despise. God isn't looking for your perfection. He's waiting for your surrender. Maybe you're thinking, but I don't feel like worshiping. I don't feel close to God. I don't feel worthy. Let me tell you the truth. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision, a defiant act of trust in the face of silence. Worship isn't always a shout of joy. Sometimes it's a whisper through tears. Sometimes the most powerful prayer you can pray is, God, I don't understand, but I still trust you. If you're in the wilderness today, if you're tired, if you feel unseen, let me remind you of this. God never wastes pain. God never forgets a tear. God never overlooks obedience. The wilderness is where God removes your idols. It's where He rewrites your identity. It's where He teaches you to hear His voice alone. Israel walked 40 years to reach the promised land. But the truth, the promised land wasn't the destination. Knowing God was. Hosea 2:14 says, therefore I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. The wilderness isn't punishment, it's intimacy. So I'll ask you now, what if the silence you hate is the soil for the faith you need? What if this breaking isn't the end, but the beginning of your becoming? God is not looking for who you pretend to be. He's not impressed by polished prayers or filtered lives. He's looking for the one who says, here I am, Lord, even in the silence, even in the pain, even when I don't feel you, I will still follow. This isn't the end of your story. This is the chapter where you let go. This is where the surrender begins. This is where God breaks you so He can build you again, stronger, purer, freer. And on the other side of this wilderness, there is glory. If this spoke to your heart, tell us in the comments, what's one thing you're surrendering to God today? Don't scroll past it. This could be your moment of change, not tomorrow. Now, your words might be the breakthrough someone else is waiting for.